Hi, I'm Justin Hales, the founder and president of Green Rocket. In this video, you will learn how to make more money with your cash by harnessing the power of uninterrupted compound interest through our velocity banking concept. If you'd like to schedule time with us to learn more about how you can apply this type of thing in your life, fill out the information below or send us an email. Okay, so an important aspect of understanding how powerful velocity banking is understanding that you finance everything you buy. Most people understand that when they borrow for something, a credit card or a bank loan, that they're financing it that way because they're paying interest to a bank that they wouldn't otherwise be paying, that the bank gets to keep. But the other side of it is when you pay cash, there's a downside to that too. The money's gone. And what you give up is the earnings that you would have on that money. So think about this. If the borrowing, the upside to borrowing is that you get to keep your cash. And then you get to use somebody else's cash to do what you want to do with it. That's the upside. But most people agree that the downside is paying interest to somebody else. Now, we can also illustrate this through the purchase of a car payment. So let's just show this is $0 and this is over time. And let's say we'll compare borrowing to buy a car versus paying cash for a car versus using your velocity banking policy to buy a car. Now, if you're going to borrow, what you'll do is you'll be negative because you borrowed for the car, now you owe that money. And let's just say that this is going to be a $30,000 car every 5 years. So you're gonna borrow for a $30,000 car and you're going to pay it off over 5 years, and then by that point you're going to be ready to buy another one. So now you're below zero. That's negative 30,000. And over 5 years, you pay back that loan so that at 5 years, it's paid off. And then at that point, you're ready to borrow another one. So you do. And then you pay it off. And then you do that again. And you do it again. And this is what it looks like when you finance a car. Now, you know that you're actually paying back more than the $30,000 because you owe some interest along the way. So the car that costs $30,000 is actually costing you more because you're also paying the interest, and that's captured back in these interest payments. So to be fair, we might say that it dips a little bit further than $30,000 each time. So then what about you say, well, that's why I don't do that. That's why I'll pay cash for my cars. So if you pay cash, the upside to paying cash is that you avoid interest to the bank. You don't have to pay them the interest. But what's the downside? The downside is you don't have any cash that you have to pay you have to give up your cash and the earnings. The earnings that you could be making with that cash. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Well, let's just say instead of borrowing, you pile up the money. So you save up the money somehow in a savings account and you pay it up until you hit that $30,000. Now you've got the money, and then you spend the money. You spend the $30,000 on the car. Now you're back to zero. And now you know that you're going to need another car in 5 years, so you start saving for it again. And then the 5 years comes, and it's time, so then you spend the money on a car again. And then you do that again, and you do that again. And what you'll notice here is that either way, you end up at zero. And that's why we say we finance it either way. Now, granted, in the financing strategy, it's your cash flow, it's actually costing you a little bit more than $30,000, there's no doubt, but you are ending up at zero either way. Now, what if you could utilize your velocity banking contract to do this? Well, if you're familiar with velocity banking, you know that the downside to borrowing doesn't exist anymore. Yes, you're paying interest, but you're capturing that interest that you would be paying to a bank, and you're capturing that back in the form of a dividend. And the idea that you have to pay it back every month or else they're going to come and take your car, that doesn't exist either, because you know that the payback is flexible. So the plus side is you get to capture some of the interest that you'd be making. Also, you have flexible payback. And also, you know that the downside to paying cash, that you don't have any cash anymore and you don't get to earn any money with your cash, that's not true with velocity banking either, because you know that when you put the money in and then you borrow against the policy to purchase something, the money that you put in is still in, it's still earning, the cash value is still increasing, you're still capturing the profits in the form of dividends. And again, as a reminder, the whole thing is tax deferred if used appropriately, tax free. So you get to keep earning with your cash. So the downside of borrowing doesn't exist. There's flexible payback, and you capture the portions of the interest back in the form of a dividend. And you also, the downside of paying cash doesn't exist, because your cash still gets to work while you've borrowed it out or you've borrowed against it. Just to be clear, it's because you're not borrowing it out. You're actually borrowing against it, so the money that's in there is still earning. Now, what does that look like? I'm going to easily run out of room here. But what it looks like is uninterrupted compound interest. It looks like that instead of piling the money up into a savings account that you then spend and is gone, you pile the money up into your velocity banking contract, and I'm showing it lower here just so that I've got more room to run, and you never make a withdrawal. Well, then, so how do I buy the car? Well, what you do is you borrow. So then you borrow and you pay it back. But the money keeps working, so it's still growing even while you've got a loan out against it. And then you borrow again for that $30,000 car, and then you pay it back over 5 years. The cash flow is the same. The cash flow is identical here. This is the same car, and it's the same every 5 years. And then after 5 years, you borrow again, and you pay back that loan. Another 5 years, you borrow again, you pay back that loan. In the end, you end up way up here. Whether the first two scenarios, whether you pay cash, you borrow from a bank, you end up at zero either way. With velocity banking, you harness the power of uninterrupted compound interest so that your money never stops growing, even while you need it to purchase a car. It continues to grow, you borrow against it, you pay it back with interest that also gets captured back in the form of a dividend. And this is how you can make more money with your money just doing the things that you regularly do now, like buying a car.